and be welcomed to the Flights of Fancy number 5. So excited to welcome the great international audience. And it is my hope that we see a video right now also. Actually, I'm fairly certain, because one of the topics of conversation with my dear friend Christos, the Greek immigrant, is going to be cooking. And of course, what would be more suitable to have as video footage of an interview with a guy who is into cooking than to see him cook? So that's why also we were gonna have a little education session visually on how to cook. Well, it's not like we're actually going to get into the technical details, but it's still a nice video experience. And it may be an option also that I add a little bit of walking to supermarkets with it, see me buy random stuff, and this will qualify well as a slice of life. Well, enough bullshit. I'm very excited and I'm very pleased to welcome my, as announced, dear Greek friend. Hello, Christos.
Hello.
How are you doing?
Not too bad.
Not too bad. Well, hopefully not too bad at the end of this podcast also. But I see your warm smile that encourages me to keep on fighting the good fight. You haven't been here so long, right, in the Netherlands?
No, I've only been here for 6 months. I moved in beginning of September.
How do you enjoy it so far, Groningen?
I like it, just a bit disheartened by the weather. It rains a lot and I don't have really the proper equipment to go around in the rain, so that's something I would have to improve.
You mean the proper ponchos and rain parkas?
Because one thing I dislike a lot is being wet. Even when I used to work, that's something I hated. There was a part of the job that I really hated, that I most of the time had to have my hands wet. And actually, being wet just makes me physically sick. Having to go around in wet clothes makes me physically sick.
It's an interesting question though, and it also already relates to one of the other topics, psychology. Because the question is, to what degree is that psychological and to what degree is that...
I guess it's pretty psychological.
Is it though? I mean, I could imagine that you're just like vulnerable to...
I don't think I'm staying like wet for that much amount of time so that I would actually be sick. Or it's just I'm feeling the wetness and I'm thinking that I'm going to be sick, so that makes me feel a bit uncomfortable, maybe slightly ill.
Generally, what do you enjoy as a person?
What do I enjoy as a person?
Yeah.
I really like music.
Oh yeah, and a really specific kind too, right?
Specific kind, it depends. It depends with the mood and also it depends with the era. Like now, recently, I've gotten into post-punk and doom.
I always like putting links in my description of my YouTube videos. So anything I should link to?
Anything you should link to,
music or whatever.
Post-punk, maybe I would say one classic band. It's Pink Turns Blue.
That's a band?
Yeah, that's a band.
Cool.
And they play post-punk. And then the other genre I mentioned, doom, I would link Bongripper. Because I would say that's a defining band of the genre at the moment.
What's so appealing about it?
Post-punk, I don't know, I just like the whole darkness and the bleakness.
Because you're such a dark and bleak person yourself,
right?
Right?
I guess. I also like the synth mood, synth kind of...
synth, as in, that's a bit like technological or something.
Yeah, but that was pretty big back in the 70s, 80s, and now I think it's making a comeback. It's making a revival. Because I also heard recently that there is this trend that's called the 30-year trend, and things tend to make a comeback every 30 years.
Oh, this is in pop culture and music or what?
In general. Clothes style and stuff. I don't know if it actually exists, if it's valid, but I heard about it yesterday and just came in mind today, now that you mentioned the synth. Because come to think of it, synth was pretty popular back in the 70s to 80s, and now I think it's making a comeback.
That's pretty cool. I really like synth too. Any concrete recommendations?
Yeah, one of my favorite bands ever, but they only released one album. It's Lina Aspera, which is this kind of 80s cold wave synth pop kind of music.
Also, you mentioned it's a bit disheartening right now to endure this weather in the Netherlands, but before you came here in the Netherlands, you actually weren't in Greece, but you were in England too.
I did spend some time in Greece before moving here, but yeah, for the past 3 years, I was living in London, in England actually, not in London. Then I spent 6 months in Greece, and then I moved here.
So at first you were in Greece, a young boy, still naive about all the darkness and bleakness of the world. And then you got confronted by the darkness and bleakness because the army was like, Christos, we need you to fight for us and we need you to kill all the Muslims. Or something along those lines, right?
I guess you could say that. I don't think it was as Muslim oriented as just general people that are not us.
It's just general outsiders.
Yeah, you could say that.
So what was that like, the army?
The army was...
And it was forced, as in it was
Yeah, you have to go. Yeah. It's mandatory in Greece. Actually, it turns out that there are some ways that you could bypass it and kind of find a legal loophole and actually not go without having any repercussions. But at the moment, I didn't really know about that, and also it was just, something that you did. I wish I could say it was an alright experience, but now thinking back, I would have preferred if I didn't go at all. But then again, my father went to the army because, again, it's mandatory, and he did a service for 2 years. So that's way worse than the service that I did, because mine was 9 months and it was recent. And my father did it like back in the day, while we also had a dictatorship in Greece.
Wow, yeah.
So that was way worse.
Yeah, I was about to ask, which years do you estimate your father was in the army?
I think it was about
like 60s, 70s?
71 to 73.
Yeah. Have you heard stories? What was that like for him?
Well, it was, first of all, there is this funny story. So my father, as a cadet, you have the option to get a rank and go into the officer kind of clique. And my father aimed to go for that. I'm not really sure about his reasons, but one of the reasons was that you were getting paid, so he would get more money. And then he told me he was going through the motions and through that whole training of becoming an officer. And then they just kind of stripped him of the rank and just left him to be and he was just a normal cadet.
So he just got demoted out of nowhere?
Yeah, it's not, he didn't actually get the promotion, but they didn't let him get it. They didn't let him reach the rank of the officer. And he found out like a year later, because he had a friend who was working in the informations office. That was the first office, and it was the information office. And so he was able to retrieve my father's file and gave it to my father. And he saw that they were kind of doing a background check on him. And they went to his neighborhood and asked his neighbors and stuff. And they went to the guy who was selling newspapers and asked him like, what kind of newspapers does he read? And he told them that he would read like left-wing affiliated newspapers. And that's why they didn't let him get around.
Yeah. Oh man.
Yeah. So that kind of sets the idea of how things were back there.
Yeah, I can imagine during the dictatorship also, obviously.
Yeah.
They didn't want a military coup.
Well, they already did. There was already a military coup.
Yeah. So they know what to protect against. And then for you, there's 9 months. What were they like? Because you actually chose to go to the special forces to have something to do.
Maybe I should go for the special forces, because every other person that went told me that most of them had joined infantry and it was just plain boring. They wouldn't do anything. There was a lot of downtime, but there wasn't actually anything to do on the downtime. During the downtime, so you would just...
What is downtime?
Like free time, where you don't have to keep guard, or you don't have any chores to do, or anything else. You're just there, but you don't...
Yeah, but you're still on the base.
Yeah,
so
you just exist. You just like exist. You don't do anything. So yeah, I actually volunteered to join the special forces, but that was actually kind of boring as well. That was during the rise of the crisis, so there weren't a lot of things we would do due to...
2008, Greece was really hit by its economic crisis.
Yeah, I think that was around 2010. So not a lot of money were put towards the army, towards us. So we wouldn't fire any shots, we didn't throw any grenades, we didn't have any substantial training on the arms, or we just like ran around a bit. We would carry a lot of equipment around us and then just go on these 3-4 hour hikes through the mountains.
When I think about the army, and I know nothing about the army, I immediately get this notion of like this place where all your individuality gets squashed, and I think about like movies or Metal Jacket, where it's like, oh yeah, you really get beat down as a soldier for not being a perfect slave or something. Is that what it was like, or is that a wrong image?
No, I wouldn't say that it was as extreme as it's shown in Full Metal Jacket or any other like these kind of movies for that matter. But yeah, you don't have any kind of individuality, and there are also these things. I'm not sure of the term right now, but this is kind of things that your superior can make you do if he doesn't like you or if you disobey him in
like what?
like I don't know, crawling under the beds. So you have a room and there are 6 beds, 6 blanket beds, double beds on one side, and then 6 double beds on the other side. And he would just tell you, get down and just crawl around the room, and you would have to crawl under the bed. Or he would just tell you,
weird.
Yeah, or he would just tell you like, drop down and just take push-ups on every or any other kind of physical activity. By the time I joined the army, they had a rule, like a rule of thumb, that anything that you would have to do, your trainer would have to do as well, so that he wasn't torturing you, but he was kind of training you. And if he was able to do it, then you should be able to do it as well, and that's not torture. He's not like
inflicting something upon you. Yeah, okay, yeah.
So it would pass like a training kind of thing.
Yeah, that's I can understand that actually. That's pretty cool. The brave Christos had a dream. He saw a place, an island, which was located far from the continent of Europe, and he knew he had to get there, for he knew his destiny was there.
Yeah, I had a fascination with England since I was young.
Also with the movies.
Yeah, I'm not actually able to pinpoint to why exactly I wanted to live in England, but I just had this desire. Partly because I was watching like the whole skinhead era and the punks and the houses that they were living in. I was really fascinated by these red brick houses that was just like the same everywhere. There was this need to move to England. So yeah, I made sure that after I finished with the army, I found a job there and moved. At first I moved in a little town outside London. It's called Egham. It was like an hour away by train.
Yeah, also to describe that process in your mind a little bit, because well, at that point you weren't too old, so a kind of more or less quote unquote logical decision for people that age would be like, oh yeah, I have to go to the standard route, like I have to do college and then I get a job and then I get a house, you know. But I think for you that was different, because also towards education you felt you had really mixed feelings and you wanted to be like independent. Do I say that right?
Yeah, I had a negative view about education in general and then about high school and universities. I didn't really want to join the student force, if I may say it like this.
Student force? Oh yeah, like the population of students. What's wrong with them then?
Because the way I saw it, like students were a bit cut off from everyday life.
Yeah.
They weren't adults, they weren't kids, they weren't workers.
Yeah.
It just
a
weren't
society
anything.
Of their own. Yeah.
It was just kind of separate.
Is that because of the students or because of something else that happens?
I could say maybe it could be partly because of the student, because maybe you have like demonstrations and then there are students participating in them. But if you're a student, you're most likely not working, so you're being supported by someone, your parents or whatever.
So you don't really have an interest or something, like you're not vulnerable, so you don't have a reason to protest because people are taking care of you.
I thought it was kind of an oxymoron to have a student protesting about the way of life or about the...
Because he's a parasite himself.
Basically that's it. I mean, like, what's your input gonna be, and how real is your input, how realistic is it gonna be? If the only idea you have of life is, I don't know, because you read the Communist Manifesto or something, which is okay.
Wait, are you describing me?
No, I'm not describing you.
I'm joking, but I do recognize myself in that a little bit.
No, but like if someone hasn't actually worked, how are they gonna convince me, I don't know, about anything? Because for better or worse, like working is a part of life. So I don't know how you can have an opinion
so
of life.
that's a bit of a criticism on the sides of the students, but then I'm sure you have a criticism on the side of society too, where society wants to isolate the students.
That also happens as well. And maybe sometimes students,
Can you
at
elaborate
least,
on that?
yeah, in media, in Greek media, because they do take part in a lot of demonstrations. They are portrayed in a negative light because of the reasons. Some of the argumentation of like politics and media is the reasons I've mentioned before. And yeah, I just didn't want to be part of it. I actually wanted to have a say, and I wanted my input. I wanted to be backed up by my lifestyle.
Yeah. So basically live in the real world.
Yeah,
So
live
then
in the real world. And
so
also, it's like the thing that I mentioned, that I read an article written from Tofler and Noor, where they're saying how the first public education came to be.
Is that findable on the internet that we can link to it?
You can find it. I'm not sure if you can find it in English. I have tried and found it.
Oh, it's a Greek sociologist, or?
No, it's an English one. It's just I found the article in Greek, so I searched for it later on when I found it in Greek. But we can look for it, and I can tell you, I think it's an excerpt from a book written by one of them. So they were just basically saying how the first public education came to be, and it was during the coal miners era in England. And they were basically saying that they would do it because they realized that the coal miners were much easier to manipulate if they kind of grew into the system than just being forced into it. So they thought that public education, free public education, was the best way to go about it.
So also that there are a lot of other motives to have public education apart from just educating. It's also just like making the population do what the state wants.
That's true, because free public education, it's obviously something positive, but then there's also luggage that comes with it. And it's what our kids, because kids are kind of in a moldable age or phase, and it's what are they being taught. Come to think of it, I remember of a class that I had in junior high school, primary school, elementary, how is it called? I'm not quite sure.
No, I'm not sure.
So like when you're 15,
it's
not high school.
Yeah, but it depends on the country. Here it will be high school.
Okay, let's just say high school. That it said, so why is it important that, for example, we don't cross the road when the red light for the pedestrians is on? And the justification was that because it's the law. There was no other justification. It's the law, so you have to follow the law.
Personally, I would say that's just bad education. Like, it would be better education if you would just show, it's dangerous, or why the law works that way.
No, but I think that was kind of but why does the law work that way? Because the law was made by people, so
who don't want you to die.
Maybe, but the way I see it, you're always like pushing an agenda. No matter what you do, there is an end goal. So the law is made by someone for some specific reason.
I could think of a much more elegant example, namely nationalism. If you have history and geography lessons where every time you talk about the country you're in, you use the word we, and every time you talk about foreigners, you use the word they. And then just do that every day for like 6 years straight, then you're gonna like be a nationalist.
That's true. Maybe not necessarily like an extreme nationalist, but still you're gonna feel like separated from the rest of the people. Because it's just they.
And then you move to England as a result.
And then that's why I didn't wanna like try and get university education. And I decided that the way to financial independence was finding a job, and I thought that like maybe being a cook, that would be the best option for me.
And at one point you worked extreme hours.
When I moved to England, it was a bit difficult because I used to work, like at the beginning, I used to work 80 hours per week, which was exhausting. And then maybe at some point I dropped down to 65, 70 hours, which is
so insane.
Still quite a lot.
But so many people couldn't keep that up, so you must be a really, really hard worker.
I don't think it's particular to me. I think everyone who works in this field, they work like this kind of hours. This is kind of the standard, maybe not 80 hours a week, maybe that's a lot, but you are expecting that you're going to work 60 hours per week. In another restaurant I worked, that was the given, like 55, 60 hours, that was just the normal.
And you came in there with this idea or this plan, like I have to make myself indispensable, and in that way I can climb.
Because I thought that the harder I worked, the better the rewards I would get. Like hard work is gonna satisfy my needs, very gratifying.
took
But
over, like with the people who had issues and you took over hours from them? How did that go?
yeah, just I thought that a good way to climb the ranks would be if I made myself indispensable, and also if I learned how to work all the different posts in a kitchen very fast, so I could just move around. And in that restaurant, at the beginning, there were like maybe different 5 posts. So you had hot food and pasta, then you had hot and cold starters, then you had cold kitchen and pastry. And I just tried to move through all of them as fast as I can, plus taking some managerial, let's say, responsibilities, like doing the stock count, filling in some paperwork about how we handle the food, how we cooked it, how we cooled it down, fridge temperatures, and also we had, because it was a seafood bar, so we had a lot of oysters and delicate seafood coming in, so there had to be a trace of papers that led the product that we're selling back to the original seller. So in case someone got poisoned by it, because seafood is a bit dangerous, in that way we could like pinpoint the blame back to the seller.
Okay.
Yeah, so I kind of tried to take over that. Plus, some of the other people working with me had like personal circumstances that didn't allow them to be in the restaurant for as long as I did. So I was kind of willing to take hours from them and work them myself.
And the end of this story, I can already give it away, is that actually you weren't rewarded by
Yeah,
this.
no, I wasn't rewarded at all. Like the general manager of that restaurant, yeah, I feel he used me. He lied to me plenty of times about things are going to be changed, how he was going to
For you,
promote
or-
me. No, that
promote
things
you.
were going to change in general, like
Yeah.
more people were going to come in, so the hours were going to be cut down. At some point, we didn't even have a head chef.
Wow.
So I was doing what the head chef would be doing, which is making orders and then taking the invoices, putting the invoices in the system, have a weekly meeting with the area general manager, with the area chef, who was responsible for like 15 restaurants. And then the area chef would tell me like, your budget is over this week. Why is that? Me, with a 2.5 year experience, I had to give an answer to the area chef, like, why is our budget over the top? And I was at a complete loss. I'm like, I don't know. I don't know.
And he also told you he was going to promote you, but he didn't.
Yeah, he did say he was going to promote me, but
I think it's really, really valuable, actually, that this story is told, what you're saying right now, because the attitudes that you came in there with in the restaurants is really this American dream attitude, I would say. Like if you, I think so, like if you work hard, you prove yourself, you go beyond the limit of what's expected of you, you know, then it's inevitable that you climb the ladder, so to say. But you also said that earlier, like it's better to work smart than to work hard.
That's what I believe now.
Yeah, but I think it's really, really valuable, because for me, when I hear this story, it's pretty clear to me that your fate, so to say, in that restaurant, it only depended on one thing and one thing only, and that thing was the personality of your manager and the perception that your manager had of you and the choices that your manager makes, because you were in his hands, basically. And you thought, oh, if I work really, really hard, then he has to make that choice. But that doesn't actually matter. All that matters is what goes on in the heads of your manager, you know? And working hard is just a way to have an impact on that. But yeah, it's not guaranteed, you know?
Well, I think that's also kind of like my fault, because I went in with the wrong mentality, and I believe that I could have pushed for more benefits, like less hour, more
like
money.
Be more assertive.
Yeah, because again, that's why I said it at the beginning. I thought that if I give, I'm gonna take as well, without having to ask or without having to force it.
Good point. Yeah, yeah. I do agree. That's a big life skill. Or like an important life skill in society, that you have to ask for things. Take
and that
initiative.
that was quite silly and naive of me that I didn't push for more things.
Yeah, because you also describe yourself as a bit quiet, withdrawn, reserved.
Yeah.
So I imagine that you just worked hard while still being withdrawn.
Yeah, that's true. Because and at some point onwards, because the head chef left and I had to step up and take his place, I was really indispensable, because I would do the ordering for the like everything that came into every product that came into the shop, I would order it, and there was no one else that knew how to do the orders or to speak with the suppliers. So yeah, I remember like one day it was the day of the ordering and I had my day off and they couldn't make the orders without me. They had to like ring me up. So I was in a position to demand things, but unfortunately I didn't do it.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, it could have been easy. You could have just threatened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or maybe not go in one day, which I did eventually, but I just didn't ask for anything. I just told them, okay, I'm not gonna come in today.
And you just expected them to give it to you without asking.
Yeah.
I guess it's also a life lesson. Like everyone will always do the thing in his own benefit.
Yeah, that's true.
In that way, like in their situation, it was just most beneficial thing for them to and have you be indispensable and to not reward you for it. Like that's the easiest.
I was basically working, if I may say, for two people and also doing the head chef's job with a chef de partie salary, which is like 3 positions lower than what I was doing.
At one point, you made the choice to come here, the city of Groningen, to study psychology.
But that was a bit later because I was working in that restaurant, and then I spent another year and a half working in London in other restaurants, and then I made the choice of coming here.
But that pattern still continued, right? That you were just like hardworking and withdrawn.
Pretty similar. I mean, in the restaurant after that, I couldn't really become such a crucial member of the restaurant
also because it was bigger, maybe
it was way bigger, and also the way it was set up. But still there I kind of expected of a promotion after a year because I could see that I was being way more productive than other people, but again I didn't push enough for things. I wasn't particularly assertive, and maybe that's one of the reasons also I didn't get promotion, because maybe they thought I wasn't ready to like lead people.
Oh yeah, that's also a good point.
Yeah. And then I moved to another restaurant, which the situation there was pretty much similar with the first one I've described.
But you do think you would have been able to lead people?
Well, yes and no. In the second restaurant, everything was pretty much standard. Like there were steps that you had to take. You didn't really have to lead people the way you would have in a normal restaurant. This is another conversation because the organization of that restaurant is a bit different than what you would normally expect. But yeah, I don't know, about leading people, maybe yes and no. I mean, I would be able to assign jobs and keep everyone maybe happy and motivated.
If I can predict your answer, maybe not the social aspect where you have to maybe walk over someone.
Yeah,
that you have to say, I know this better than you do.
Yeah, that's true, yeah. That's a part, yeah, I'm weak. I was weak, I'm still weak.
Well, in a sense, anyway. Like in terms of working hard, you're much stronger than I am, I guess. So it depends in what way.
Yeah, and then after that, I kind of decided like I wasn't particularly satisfied with my life.
Also, I think a nice way to make the bridge is to mention the guy you met on the plane from London to Greece.
Yeah, so I met this guy at the plane who was he was obnoxious. Maybe I was just annoyed by the fact that he did what I couldn't do.
Jealous.
That I found him obnoxious, yeah. I saw he was working as a DJ in Greece and as a piercer in a tattoo shop.
Oh, yeah.
He did piercings to people, which both jobs are kind of unsustainable, so it means that he didn't really have a job, so he was just unemployed.
In any case, it's looked down upon in Greece anyway.
That's what I think of. And he had a university degree, I don't remember the field in which he got it. And he told me that he moved to London and he was trying to kickstart his career as a DJ. And then he found a job in a bank because he had that degree. And that was really upsetting for me, because at that point I was also kind of trying to make a transition from being a cook to being, I don't know, anything else that didn't involve a kitchen. And I was like largely unsuccessful. So yeah, that maybe was a turning point as well.
And now you come here, you study psychology. Now you are suddenly enveloped in that one thing that you tried to move away from before you went to England. Namely that silly dimension of like students walking around in their own world. Do you recognize that, or do you feel like, oh, it's not that bad after all?
Well, now I think I am not as, if I may say, politically invested as I was 7 years back. Because, you know, when you're young, at least the way it was for me, when you're young, you see the fault in the world and you're like, okay, I don't want to be a part of this world, maybe of this system, because it's faulted. Yeah, you could say that as well. But then real life hits you and you realize that maybe there's not a lot of things you can change. Maybe you cannot make as radical changes as you thought you would be able to, maybe in one lifetime. But yeah, now I don't think about it as much.
Personally, I feel a bit mixed. I completely understand what you say, but I always want to be careful when making the claims that you claim. Personally,
Such as?
Well, yeah, it is a story that I hear a lot, you know, like when you're young, you're idealistic, but then you grow older, you accept the real world and so on. I do think you're right. Like, I know what you mean. Like, you have to accept that life is a struggle, you know, like people are trying to survive. And that takes up so much energy that they're not busy consciously fucking up the world. That's how I experienced it. Like when I was young, I thought, oh yeah, the world is such a bad place and all everyone does is just make bad choices and fuck up the world. But now you realize, no, people are just like scraping by, you know? But on the other hand, if everyone thinks that, oh yeah, there's no point in trying because this is the real world, then if everyone thought that, then we would still be in the Middle Ages, you know? Because no one would try to change anything. So it's a bit of a balance, if you know what I mean.
Well, I don't know, like about the Middle Ages, like there's been a lot of technological improvement. I think what improved the way of life is the technological improvements that have happened, not so much
social change.
Societal
well, obviously there has been like feminism and racism and stuff has improved a lot.
Yeah, okay. Fair enough.
Yeah, but I fully understand your point, of course. Yeah.
But then, okay, so like there's been feminism and then there's been racism that I believe, yeah, you're right, have been improved a lot. But then how do you move from one economical system to another? Because feminism, there's clearly people that are being oppressed and are actively trying to change that. Racism, you do the same as well. But then let's say, how do you move from capitalism, which a lot of people think that it's not a sustainable system or that it's bad for the majority of the people? Like how would you move to another kind of system?
Yeah, I think, there were a lot of unspoken things between what we said earlier. But I think now that we've spoken it out, that's just like the big issues of the 21st century. It's like climate change, income inequality, and so on. Yeah, but the question is, should we care or should we just survive and build our own home, you know? Probably a mix.
Okay.
Yeah. But then university, student dimension, you
still do think that students are still a bit cut off from the rest of the world.
Do you see that in others actually? That these other students are really idealistic, that they feel like, oh yeah, the world's such a bad place, whereas you come from this real world and you say...
Not so much here as I would see it in students in Greece.
Okay.
Students in Greece, it's like pretty prevalent that if you're gonna be a student, you're most likely going to be involved politically in one fraction or the other.
But also radical left wing, is that very common in Greek students?
These common, it's also, I would say, maybe kind of trendy because you're a student, so you're going to be slightly radical. You want to come into a kind of confrontation with the old values, maybe even your parents. So going left is the way to go.
Yeah. And then Syriza came to power and nothing changed.
And then what?
And then Syriza came to power and nothing much changed.
Because now we've had like people in being in the media or being in the government that back when they were students, they used to be in these radical left-wing factions.
For the people who don't know, Syriza is the socialist party, right?
Yeah. And they also used to, I don't know, I guess they used to stand for something else. And now, as the years go by, and they maybe rise in power and popularity.
They become more politically centered.
Yeah, but that's not just for the political parties, also for people in the media as well, like reporters and relevant. But yeah, I don't really have a political view or anything.
No.
I just let everyone be and I'm hoping that everyone else can do the same.
And as to your choice for psychology, you've always been intrigued by questions of what makes people tick. What are their motives?
Yeah, that's true.
What do you mean by that?
Why do you react the way you react? Why on the, let's say on the same stimuli, you react in one way and I react another way? Maybe in an adverse condition, you're going to be logical and face it and I'm just going to have a breakdown. Or what is it that makes us have these two completely different reactions in the same situation?
You already had these thoughts, obviously, before you started psychology, but was there obviously the contents of the psychological study don't exactly match with the thoughts, like there are also differences. Like I imagine there's aspects to the whole academic field of psychology that you didn't see coming.
Yeah, that's true.
Can you name examples?
So I'd say sociocultural psychology or even motivational psychology, and I never really thought about how these things work, but it's there, they do exist, and there are people like specializing on them.
You already have an intuition of where you want to go?
I would say that I would like to go into research, maybe cognitive science, neuroscience, something like that. I don't think I would like to be a counselor. I don't want to like interact with people as much.
You're too withdrawn?
Yeah, maybe that. And also, I don't know how I would cope like having another person being across me and just being sad. I don't think I would be able to cope with it.
Yeah, you would be too influenced yourself to also become sad. Yeah, you do feel like your parents instilled this value in you a little bit, that, oh yeah, you should make your life choices based on the good career that you have and so on.
Yeah, that's true, because when I was considering like, okay, if I'm not a cook, what am I? What should I do? Because I also have this kind of notion that your job defines you. So,
Still?
yeah, I guess.
Yeah, I think that does show, like when you were in England working as a cook. I do get the feeling that you invested everything in that. Like you didn't see it as a way to just earn money and do your thing, but that was your thing.
No, but when you're working as a cook, I don't think there's any other way you can go about it.
Okay,
because even if people aren't working the extreme of 80 hours a week, you're still going to be working 13, 14 hours, 11 hours. You don't really get a lot of free time after that. So being a cook kind of like actually defines who and what you are. And also if you kind of hang out with cooks, they don't really speak about anything else.
Really?
There's not a lot of things going on.
Cook talk, what's that like?
So it's like, I don't know, how was your shift? What the other person did that pissed you off? He didn't leave you enough preparation. He didn't have everything in place. An order that came up and they were asking for things that you couldn't give them. Like they wanted, I don't know, a burger without the burger or stuff like that. A fight you had with the server. What kind of knives are you using? How are you sharpening your knives? What kind of knives you want to buy? Yeah, and stuff like that. So when you're a cook, you are a cook, you're there. It's not like you can be a cook on the side.
It's also funny that when I asked you that question, what's cook talk like? You took like a millisecond to think about the answer. So that means you had a lot of cook talk.
Yeah, because
that was your life.
Even like at the beginning, when I wasn't working as hard, the beginning when I was working in Greece, like I feel I was invested in it, so I only wanted to go to cook, to talk about cooking stuff. Like we would go out and some of the older guys would say, come on, let's speak about something else. I'm like, no, fuck that. Let's only talk about what happens in the kitchen, because that was interesting as well. But yeah, cooks, like they work a lot and you don't really get any other interests out of that. And that's also a downside to being a cook. Because you're completely cut off from everything else.
And still you wonder whether you can have the same work ethic while studying, because the difference with studying at the university is that you really have to manage your own timetable.
Yeah, no, I find it really difficult to like apply myself. And I also find it kind of surprising, because when I was working, I could see like when other people stopped, I was just getting started. Like other people were getting tired and would like kind of fuck around, try and have a break or trying not to work so hard. No, sorry, while I was working.
Oh.
I can see that like when I find it surprising that I cannot study, I cannot apply myself and study as much, because when I used to work as a cook, I really did give it like 100% and I would just go on working and being productive longer than most of the people. So now I can't even like stay put and study for 2 hours without having an interruption in between.
Yeah, but it also takes a different kind of effort. It's focused with your mind rather than like I imagine cook you can kind of turn off your mind too.
Sometimes you can, depending on the task that you have ahead, but yeah, you can kind of go on an autopilot.
Would you say you have a certain slogan or motto?
About
that you like, anything?
No, I just like try and behave to other people as I would like them to behave to me.
Which is withdrawn?
No, which is... Okay.
Got you!
Yeah, maybe that's not particularly good. But in terms of like being polite, maybe helping out someone who's in a difficult or uncomfortable situation.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it. No, yeah, maybe, people shouldn't be as withdrawn with me as I am.
No,
with
but
them.
you said you try, so I'm just teasing you, of course. Well, I think that's a good finisher. I thank you very much for watching Flights of Fancy number 5. Please remember to give me that comment, that like, and that subscribe button. And now it's time for the outro.
And I know she'll be there for me, at least we'll both be numb. And she'll always get the best of me, the worst is yet to come. But at least we'll both be beautiful and stay forever young. This I know, this I know. She told me don't worry about it. She told me don't worry anymore. We both know you can't go without it. She told me you'll never be alone. I can feel my face when I'm with you, but I love it. Oh, I love it. I can feel my face when